During my time at the University of Victoria, I found a rock. It was nothing special, but this rock has traveled with me across countries, careers, and life chapters. In my 20s, I bought a one-way ticket with my friends to Thailand, and we traveled around without a plan. Eventually, I ended up in Perth, Western Australia, where my father grew up, and I lived near the beach and worked at a restaurant. When I ran out of money, I found a role at a mining company that had operations all across Australia. So I traveled with work, even up to the Northern Territory, where the crocodiles roam. But living away from home for so long started to lose the thrill of living abroad. So I held my rock and knew it was time to go back. In Canada, that same company had an office in Vancouver, so I was able to keep my role, and I also met my future husband, who is still in mining to this day. Life was pretty comfortable until the global recession hit Canada like a rock slide. At work, I was given the choice to either lose my role or to hit the road again. So I packed my bags with my rock, and for the next 2 years, I traveled to project sites across the United States and even down to Lima, Peru, where I gained a lot of project experience sitting in those dusty mining offices. But at the same time, I got to explore new places, learn Spanish, and also I eventually got engaged. When those 2 years finished, I moved back to Canada, got married, found a great role in Calgary, bought a house, and started a family. For the next 10 years, I worked at an energy infrastructure company, raising my children, and life was pretty comfortable. But this year, the familiar started to feel too comfortable. At what point is it time to pivot? When I start to have these feelings, I hold my rock and I think about, do I change or don't I change? As the Australian psychologist Hugh McKay said, people like the idea of choice, and our culture almost worships it, but we seek refuge in the familiar and the comfortable, and I was seeking refuge in the familiar and the comfortable. But the psychologist Kurt Lewin said, if you really want to understand something, try to change it. I also thought about my children. I'm not only their mother, I'm also their role model. And I want them to see me try new things, and they can start to look for their own rocks. 6 months ago, I felt my own seismic shift. I held my rock and decided to pivot in 3 areas of my life: work, school, as well as family. At work, I stepped outside of my comfort zone, and I'm now working with the supply chain team on one of the biggest projects at our company. Academically, I applied for the MBA program, was accepted, and here I am today, speaking to you and enjoying every single day. I continue to pan away for those learning nuggets day after day. And learning is a lot like mining. You're constantly looking under the surface to get those new insights. And with my family, I wanted to show them and experience what it looks like to take bold steps. So this year as well, with my husband, we decided to take them overseas. We bought 4 tickets to Australia, to the big rock in the Southern Ocean, Tasmania. I wanted to show my children where I started my own journey. In Tasmania, we hiked along trails at national parks. We fed those marsupials at wildlife sanctuaries. We also, by boat, navigated the tall, rocky coastline along the Tasman Peninsula. But this trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a reminder that change is healthy and needed. This trip also changed us as a family. We learned how to adapt to new time zones. We appreciated Australian culture. And we also learned the value of recognizing the ability to change as your life unfolds. Kurt Lewin calls this feeling of restlessness the unfreezing stage. It's when you recognize that something might be off, that it could be time to think about a change. When I have this feeling, I hold my rock and I make a decision. Do I do nothing or do I take action? So whether this unfreezing is driven by a positive or a negative feeling, the key is to recognize it and do something about it. As Dr. Deborah Linehan, the head of the MBA and Global Management Program at Royal Roads is often heard saying, "You can do hard things." Sometimes those hard things are simply moving a big rock that has sat in one place for too long. So when you go outside today and you see a rock, pick it up, feel its weight, and recognize that you just unfroze it from its position. Now think about your own life and decide, is it time to pivot? Thank you.